Hello and welcome into another episode of the Three Fever Point After podcast. I'm Alex Anderson, joined as always by Bossier offensive coordinator Jeff Harper, co-host of Friday Football Fever, the finale.
Yeah, man, that's fun.
We had a great time, and you did a great job as always. Man, we got a small slate to talk about this week. Just 2 games in Louisiana, but still a lot to discuss. Now, obviously, Friday night, we did a lot of the talking about those games that we saw live, as they happened. But I think the most shocking outcome of last week was obviously that game at Calvary.
Yeah, I don't coach there,
Right.
but I was at the ball game, and I feel like it's still like a hangover, like a little bit of a hangover. Like, what is going on with this? Like, kind of sad,
Yeah.
really, because there's a lot of kids on that team that I've gotten to know through relationships with Abram and Hudson Price and one of the other quarterbacks, and so to have some of the things that didn't go their way and then fight back, take the lead, and then it comes down to one special teams. They get the onside kick, they win the ball
Right.
game. The other team didn't have any timeouts. I feel terrible for the Calvary guys, and I feel bad for the fan base, and it's one of those deals where the better team that game won. I think Catholic, and you and I talked about this.
Mm-hmm.
Catholic was just one step ahead the whole night, and then when things didn't go their way, they responded.
Yep.
And so hats off to Catholic. I think if those two teams played 10 games, I think Calvary could win 7
Yeah.
of those. I think Catholic played their best game that night, and they made the plays when they had to, and Calvary did everything they needed to do except the onside kick
Right.
recovery. And so sometimes it comes down to 1 or 2 plays that shape a season. And I know that after winning a state championship, they wanted to go back to the Dome and repeat and ultimately defend the state title. And it came down to really 1 play.
Yeah.
And then a little extra drive, and then ability to get in and kick a field goal. And so hats off to Calvary, and hats off to that senior class, the winningest senior class in Calvary football history. That's impressive. Abram finished with an incredible year statistically, and really only averaged about 18 to 20 pass attempts a game.
Right.
I mean, you think about it. We've talked about Ben Taylor. We've talked about Pop Houston and all the stats. Abram finishes, I think, top 10 in pass yards and touchdowns, and tied with Cade Hart, I think, at number 6.
Yeah.
And he did that this year pretty much, but they're a run-dominant team, which
Right.
is shocking.
Yeah.
So
And
hats
playing
off to those
half
guys.
of most of his games.
Yeah,
too.
especially in district,
Right.
So he's done some incredible things, and I think he's got an opportunity to finish, as the nation's one. I'd say the top 3 to 4 quarterbacks in the country all time in completion percentage for a season and a career.
Yeah.
And those are 2 things that are pretty impressive. So proud of those guys.
One thing that stands out to me after watching that Cowboys game on Monday night, you mentioned the Calvary onside kick, and I'm sure coaches harp on it time and time again, and we see it time and time again at the highest level, special teams.
It gets you beat real fast.
And it did for
Special
Dallas.
teams can get you to clean your office out if you don't, if it happens a lot, especially in the NFL, special teams will get you fired.
Yep.
And it is a third of the ball game.
Yep.
People forget it because it's plays that don't really shape the outcome until it does.
Yep.
That happens a lot when you don't expect it.
Well, you look at the Cowboys game Monday. That was it. I mean, that was the whole game. That miscue on the block punt, and then you knew what was going to happen when you give Joe Burrow the ball in that circumstance. You knew exactly.
And how good is that guy?
Oh,
That's a different topic for a different day. But we're talking about a dude that's a generational talent that's on a losing team.
he would be if they were.
He
in
would be the
playoffs, he'd be
MVP if he
easy.
was on a different team.
Yeah.
If him and Russell Wilson were on different teams, and Russell's done a great job with
But it
Pittsburgh.
would be totally different.
You put him on, Buffalo. You put him, Kansas City. Doesn't matter. Right now, he's to me one of the best quarterbacks that we've seen, and he has nothing to show for it.
I know, it's crazy, and he's got a Batmobile. I don't know if you saw that.
Well, we hope.
He doesn't have it yet, but
He's been real coy about it, according to the announcers last night.
Right.
I can't wait. I hope he gets it.
yeah, that would be amazing, and he's certainly got all the swag in the world.
Oh,
to,
no doubt.
I mean, we're totally going off on a tangent because we don't have a lot to talk about, but
I'd drive it to a game.
I'll never.
I would.
Oh,
I'd drive it.
easy. At least training camp. I'll never forget. The infamous picture with Joe sitting up with the cigar after the championship.
Oh,
Daniel and I walked right by them when they were taking that picture, and I looked at Daniel and was like, That is the coolest thing I've ever seen in real life. Like, he was
You should have
posing
snapped
up.
one with your
I
phone.
should have. I mean, you don't realize it's going to be this viral moment right there.
That's the picture.
And when he came in, and I don't know how much this was shown, and he came into the press conference room, and Coach O was still on the podium, and he's still puffing on that cigar. And they said, the security guy, and some people might take this the wrong way, but the security guy was like, oh, hey, you can't smoke that in here. And Joe had that cigar in his hand, and he looked back down the tunnel, and he looked back, and he was like, you see what I just did out there? I'm going to smoke my cigar. And Coach O said, take it easy, put the cigar up. But it was a great moment.
What an awesome guy.
Yeah, well, that was a great tangent. Talk about a loss, go right to one of the greatest wins ever. So, Calvary, the one team that lost, Logansport another.
Yeah.
Just one of those games against South Plaquemines. They were in it the whole way. South Plaquemines made that play at the end.
So Kevin McGee and I are buddies, and he texted me about some quarterback stuff during the season, and we exchanged some texts and said we'll talk soon when the season ends. And so I sent him a text and just said, man, heartbreaking loss, bro. I was really hoping we'd see a rematch. And he said, we had that thing won. I can't tell you the next thing he wrote, but it was pretty explicit that they pretty much did it to themselves. And so, at the end of the day, it's Logansport. They're going to be in it every year. They're going to be in the conversation every year. Kevin McGee's one of the best coaches in the state, especially, you can take all classifications, but what he's accomplished, in just a short time at Logansport is very impressive. And so I fully expect that he's going to get them right and back in that same conversation again next year.
Well, they're going to have a kicker for 4 years.
Yep.
And I believe Coach McGee's kid's coming up, right?
Oh, yeah.
Quarterback, yeah.
Oh, yeah. And so I got to work with Keaton this past offseason until baseball, and then his son. And so, have an opportunity to get to work with other coaches' kids is, number one, it's an honor that they'd ask. But to build relationships with those guys and see their kids, flourish and then have the opportunity like this with Coach McGee and his son that's coming up. He throws a beautiful ball. Right. And Kevin was legit in high school. We played at the same time.
Oh, yeah.
So I remember highlights, him playing, and then he goes on to play at Northwestern. So you're talking about a dude that could spin it. And, there ain't nobody on the roster that throws it as good as Kevin. So you guarantee his son, by the time it's time for him to be playing, is going to be really good.
That's awesome. So looking forward to that. And it did seem like Logansport kind of – it seems like, I don't know if they ever went away, but it kind of feels like they're back in a sense. Kind of what we've seen with Haynesville, maybe Logansport a year behind.
Yeah. Just talent and good coaching, right. And setting themselves up for success. I think you're going to see that year in and year out. Yeah,
and so obviously we were hoping for the rematch with Haynesville. We got one half of it, the half we expected for sure to get there, the Golden Tornado. But still unbeaten, dominant again. They now play that South Plaquemines team.
Yep.
Thursday, 3:30 for all the marbles. What are we thinking?
I'm not going to pick against them.
No.
No way am I picking against those guys. The way they're playing with a specific purpose, and it's to destroy whatever is on the field with them. And South Plaque is a really good football team, and they're going to give them everything they got, and it's the state championship game. But Coach Franklin is, he's got his guys playing really well. Today we had a volunteer luncheon at the church, and Kenny Knotts, who's a former state champion quarterback from Haynesville, went on to play college baseball at Northwestern, chairman of personnel committee at our church. He was telling me the stories playing for Coach Red Franklin.
So many.
And how he turned the ball over 3 times and they lost the state championship game. And Coach Franklin pulls the film up with them watching it, and he blames it on he pulled it on an option keep, and he trips and falls when he could have got the first down. Would have won the ball game. And they kind of put that on Kenny. And Kenny was telling me the story the next year. They came out and they won the state championship 11-8. And he said, it's just this narrow focus in Haynesville. It's about doing the little things right.
Yep.
He told me the story how a writer for the paper wanted to interview him and his running back before the start of the season. And the guy was 15 minutes late. And Red Franklin met him in the parking lot and told him, you're not welcome here.
Oh, wow.
And left because it messed up their practice schedule.
Yeah.
Well, I'm sure David Franklin's the same way.
He is. I can tell you
He's not going to play around with that. They do the little things right.
Yep.
And when I hear these stories of former players, the former starting quarterback from Haynesville's telling me these stories, I can only imagine what it's like now in an era where media is really, it's everywhere. I mean, it's social. It's in your phone.
Right.
There's access to players and coaches, and you can imagine the amount of distraction it is in how Coach Franklin's probably taken some, advice of his dad and like, don't allow these things.
Yep.
This is white noise, son. You
Yeah.
focus on the task at hand. So I fully expect them to be ready to go and loaded for bear.
Yeah, I think so as well. And I do want to give Coach Franklin, David Franklin, a lot of credit. The difference of him in terms of dealing with the media from when I first started to now, he's always been the nicest guy imaginable. He's always open. He lets us come out whenever we want. But it was more so his, the way he presented in terms of, he was maybe a little more closed off years ago. But he's really, we had him on Friday night. He really has been giving us some good stuff. And I think he kind of gets it. A little more than maybe years past. And, it's a little easier to talk when you're undefeated and head to the dome.
There's no doubt about that. And two, when he took over as head coach, there was a period of time where they had some lean years where they were rebuilding.
Right.
They didn't have some of the studs, and that's kind of really when he started to put his fingerprint on the program, and he made it things the way he really wanted it to be, to fit the culture and fit the players that he had. And now look at them. I mean, they're in the conversation. Last 5 years that
Right.
we've been. 6 years we've been doing this, he's in the conversation every year. Yep. And so even the down year, they're still in it because it's Haynesville. And they can, they're so well coached, they're so disciplined, and they always have talent that even if they've, lost some kids to injuries or whatever, they're still there in the conversation. So, I'm looking forward to watching that game. I'm picking a buddy up in Natchitoches, and we're heading down to LSU to meet my daughter for something, and then we're going to get to New Orleans to make sure we make kickoff of that game. That's the first game that I want to see.
Yeah, it's going to be good. And I remember, kind of a turning point for this program and to this recent run that they've been on was when Homer won that state championship.
Oh, yeah.
Coach Franklin told me and Daniel, that's not okay. That's
the state's oldest rivalry.
Right. And they did not enjoy seeing that. And then it's like you blink and they're there for the second year in a row and easily the favorites to get state title number 18.
Yeah, I'm pulling for them.
Yeah, same here. The only other one we have left is Ruston, and wow, they've looked good over Destrehan.
I don't know how many highlights I've seen on Twitter, but they just physically whipped Destrehan. There's no surprise here. I mean, it's the defending state champs. I mean, everybody knows that. But they played in a very tough district. There was a lot of really close games, and then I think they righted the ship at some point in the season. They got things worked out and fixed, and when you beat a West Monroe team 36-0, you're pretty good. And even if it's not to the standard that they want to be at, they may not be playing their best ball. You shut out a West Monroe team that did nothing but go out and schedule the best people they could play. And I saw West Monroe play Parkway, and they were good.
Yeah.
And to see how Ash played Bird in their playoff game, Ash is really, really good. And then how Ash beat Neville, and then Neville turns around and loses to Central. It's like, this is shocking.
Yeah.
And so I think that
some parity in
there's a little parity, and it's new names like Neville. They're a powerhouse. Everybody knows that, but for them to come out like they were this year and just whipping everybody,
right.
And then to see Ash flip the script, it's just exciting. I'm looking forward to watching Ruston, try to go back to back, and I think that this game is a little different matchup than what they're used to, because they had Destrehan previously, and then last year they beat Zachary, I believe.
Yeah.
And so this one's going to be interesting, but I still think they have the upper hand.
Yeah, it's hard not to, and obviously we see them every week, so we're a little more slanted that way. But I know that Central and Neville game had some antics, if you will.
Didn't they get into a fight before the game started?
Yeah, early on.
Not what you want as a head coach.
Not at all.
Not what you want. You don't want to fight before the game because now you're distracted.
Yeah. Then I saw Neville's coach was with Aaron Dietrich over in Monroe on the radio this week, and he's like, Ruston's going to beat the crap out of him.
I'm sure he's wanting that bad. Just, hey, get it for 2-5A. Right?
That's it right there. I mean, gosh, what a league that was. You look at
Loaded.
1 and 2-5A this year. Unbelievable.
Well, 1-5A had a little more parity than I was expecting. When we went
100%.
preseason, we had Parkway in the conversation because of the talent they had coming back. we had to airline the conversation because they really just had a couple of bad series against Shreve the previous year that they should have been district champs. Could have been. And so you knew they were going to be there. Huntington was the dark horse after watching them, and they made noise in the district year one, and they're going to be, there as many times as they want to be with the talent they have. The parity there, in both districts, it's interesting because 2-5A is dominated by West Monroe, and then West Monroe coaches changes, little down year, losing some kids to Sterlington and other schools. Ruston, the rise of Ruston. Now you've got this juggernaut, and then lo and behold, 1 year after they win it, here comes Neville with a new head coach and a new mindset. And Coach Tannehill, the previous head coach, did a great job. Had guys throwing it all over the yard. I trained one of his quarterbacks, and got to hang out with him last year at the Dome. Really good dude. But to see the rise of Neville and be a really good team in all three phases was impressive. And then here comes Thomas Bachman and the Trojans. Yep. Now, I think people lose. We are so like what is happening right now. Right. We want to write in the greatest of all time with a 3-year career. Like I can't stand that.
It's the worst.
Right? This is the best college football team we've ever seen.
Worst. Yep.
Like I can't stand that. Ash was winning in 2019 with Jacobian Guillory and Bud Clark at safety, and I think it was Shield Taylor was the tight end, and Judd Barton was the QB. Yeah. We played them in homecoming in 19. We're like, what are we doing playing these guys? They're legit. They beat us 42-0. I mean, it was bad, and they lose a heartbreaker. I believe in the quarters. I think it was the quarterfinals that year, like 23-21 or 13-10, something close. Then turn around. And you see them the next year, they're a legal formation or false start away from a 2-point conversion to win the state championship during the COVID year. People forget. Right. Bachman has been building this thing. Mm-hmm. And I'm going to go ahead and just throw this out there, all right? And this is just for our listeners. This is the time of year you see coaching turnover, right? Don't be surprised. Don't be surprised if you hear of Thomas Bachman being courted by West Monroe. I don't know anything. Yeah. I don't know anything. But if West Monroe wants a younger head coach that has built a program, that's taken a program in an area that is kind of just floundered a little bit and turn it into a dominant program. By the way, they're going from public or non-select to select. Yeah. They're not getting, another public school. They're getting Edna Carr in the Dome. Right. In Edna Carr's backyard. If you win that game, just don't be surprised. I'm throwing that little nugget out there. I have not heard anything from anybody. I would not, share that anyways. But I just think that if West Monroe wants the next guy that can really draw attention back to the program and ignite a fan base and get them excited again, he's a guy that can do it. And so don't be surprised if his name is thrown out there for that West Monroe job. But the two districts, just putting a capstone on it. Parity, yes, and then you're not your usual, district champion 2-5A. Like Neville winning it outright. It's very impressive. Yeah. And so I think that it's going to continue to be a fun district to watch. Yeah, and we'll talk more next week, when the season is officially over, about what we're thinking for next year. I don't want to get too far ahead of ourselves, but I feel like we're going to be right back at kind of in the same boat of just fun games every Friday night. And that was kind of when you look back on the show, that was kind of the case. I mean, it seemed like every week had one or two of those just games that were wacky and just what high school football's all about. Evangel Shreve, like you talked about it Friday night. Unbelievable. You got so many great football games. Now people are going to criticize the defense and 1-5A don't play any defense. And people don't like to have fun. Or they don't like scoring, right? Yeah. So you want to watch a 10-7 ball game? Like you would say, fire the coordinator. Like these guys are terrible. Right. No like one Saints wants Giants. Do we want to watch Saints Giants again? No. Do you remember when LSU played Alabama? I think it was like 9-6. I do. Okay. Nobody thought that LSU was the better team. Yeah. They weren't. Right. But they played better that day, right? Because it was a defensive struggle. No one wants to watch that. I'd rather watch paint dry. It's like that's not fun. So don't criticize it when a team goes out there and scores 78 points. you're there to watch points being scored.
Yeah.
And it's not a coaching issue. It's a matter of that you're watching really good football. And it happened all over the state this year.
It was crazy.
A lot of it happened right here in Northwest Louisiana, and we got to be a part of it. And so,
Captain Shreve was part of like 5 of them.
oh, I know, man. I know. And
It was a wild year for
they
the
were
Gators.
losing efforts too. That's
Yeah.
the bad part, because they had that with Airline. They had that with Evangel. They had a shootout with Destrehan.
Right.
And I'm sure we're missing another one. So I mean, they were in a lot of them.
Yeah, it was crazy. Well, Coach, we're going to kind of save this stuff for next week, because
Yeah.
we do want to do one last recap episode when we do know what happens in the Superdome. We're pulling for Haynesville. We're pulling for Ruston. The last thing I got for you is your second year kind of getting to see behind the scenes on the Fever.
Yeah.
Just your thoughts on the process and what it's like.
Yeah, I don't think people understand how much work goes into a live broadcast.
Yeah.
I'm just sitting there and I'm agreeing with what you're saying, right? I don't have a script, but what's loaded in the prompter, all the stats, all the names being right, all the graphics being right, having all the highlights cued perfectly, the fact that you're covering games all over the state and the Texas area, and you have to do it, and everything has to go smoothly, and you're relying on a lot of people behind the scenes. What you do and what your crew does to highlight high school sports, people would be shocked if they got a peek behind the curtain. And so on behalf of everybody in our area, we're grateful for what you do.
Thank you.
And thank you for allowing me to be a small part of the fall every year. I've enjoyed it and
No, it's
look
the
forward to
best.
doing it again.
Oh yeah, we're certainly gonna have you back. I can guarantee you that. And yeah, I did kind of want to say that just to our crew. I mean, we got guys and girls upstairs right now when we're recording this.
Yep.
Their dinner break's getting shortened, but
Yep.
obviously they care about the product, and so many people have their hands in on what we do, and they're just magnificent. So we did want to give a shout out to all those fine folks, and let's let those folks go get some dinner, Coach.
Absolutely. Sounds good.
We'll see you next week on the 3 Fever Point After podcast, and we'll see you in the Dome this weekend.